So Ashtanga Yoga is a system of yoga that comes from Mysore, India, and it basically involves a couple things. One is it involves like a certain technique of breathing. It involves a sequence of postures, and it also involves a place where your eyes are supposed to look in every single pose. And there's really 6 series of Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga actually means 8-limbed path. And that basically is a guideline for living, but our practice, what we do as a practice, it boils down to those things. A place where your eyes look, a certain sequence of postures, and a technique for breathing. That's what Ashtanga Yoga is. How did I first get started in Ashtanga Yoga? Yeah, this lady came up to me when I was 6 months sober. And she said that she thought she was supposed to teach me yoga. And I was in a place where I was willing to do anything to get sober, but I wasn't really willing to do yoga, and I told her no. And one of the interesting thing is that, you know, over the next 2 days, I saw her 6 times. So you could say maybe it was an act of providence or something like that. And every time she would ask me like, hey, you want to do my yoga class? And I would say no. And then finally kind of the straw that broke the camel's back is I actually saw her at the gas station. And when I saw her at the gas station, I heard her whistling like on the other side of the pump. And I looked around the pump and I was like, oh my gosh, like how am I seeing this lady again? And she said, I think you need to do my yoga class. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do your yoga class. And the other side of the story is like, I was doing the 11th step in a 12-step program. And when you're doing the steps, like, you basically have to figure out how to take this one sentence and make it apply to your life. And the step that I was working on was called, the 11th step is sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. Like that's what the step is. And I remember like talking to my friends and they said, well, of course, like, you know, you saw this lady 6 times. You're working on the 11th step, sought through prayer and meditation. Like yoga is meditation. And at the time I didn't think yoga was meditation, like I didn't know what it was, but like when they said that, like for some reason that I've heard like movement meditation or whatever. And so then I reluctantly went to my first yoga class and I hated it. I did, it drove me nuts. I couldn't touch my toes. I was the only male there. I felt really funny about that. And I walked in, I didn't have the right gear or any of this stuff, and I compared myself to other people, and it was terrible. And I remember like laying down for what we call Shavasana, and Shavasana is when we basically just take a rest after our practice. And I'm sitting there and I was like basically crying angry tears because I also couldn't do a push-up because of like the amount of, you know, damage that I'd done to my body when I was like, you know, from the age of 15 to 25 or whatever, when I was using drugs and alcohol. And that was pretty heartbreaking, to be honest with you. And I'm lucky that I actually came back. My sponsor actually told me to go back. And I went back the second class, and ever since that second class I've been practicing yoga. So, and it was Ashtanga Yoga, to be honest with you. It's the only style that I've ever done. So what inspired me to teach? You know, that's a long story. You know, I felt like in my own personal practice that I reached a spot where I felt like secure enough that I was able to teach other people, and I did a teacher training. And you know, when I got done with that, like I started teaching classes. I started teaching primarily in treatment centers. And when I did that, like I understood that there was definitely a need for this style because it changed my life. And so I could definitely see how it would change other people's as well. But one of the biggest shifts was that the reason why I wanted to give it back is because of like how transformational it was for me. You know, so I started making trips to Mysore, India, to study with one of the, maybe the most influential yoga teachers in all of the world. His name is Sharat Joyce, and he's my teacher, and he's the person who's, and I basically became authorized, so I'm an authorized level 2 teacher, which I was the first one in Columbus, Ohio, which was pretty cool. People taught this style of yoga in Columbus, but no one taught it with like that connection. And so one of the, kind of the hallmarks of the Ashtanga system is that you always have a teacher that is connected to Mysore, India, and I became that person here in Columbus, Ohio. And so I've been able to, over the last 10 years, like cultivate, a pretty large following of people that like come and study with me and practice, and I get the opportunity to go around and teach in different places and different countries and stuff like that too. I'm basically all over the globe. I get to do a couple things. One is I run a nonprofit, and the nonprofit is called the Trini Foundation, and it basically teaches people in treatment centers the tool of Ashtanga yoga. And so I go around, I raise money, I give talks that people have the opportunity to volunteer or donate or however the capacity they want to be in the foundation or any kind of work that they want to do for us. So I do that quite frequently. And then I also teach, lead classes and Mysore style classes, the same as what I do in Columbus, I just do it in a different place. And I also teach technique workshops, and I teach philosophy workshops and things like that. And really the thing that kind of like, I guess called me to all of these different areas of the globe was the fact that I wrote a book, and the book was called Away from Darkness, and from that book I really, like, my yoga career kind of exploded from there. It was well received from the yoga community, and it's been like a pretty awesome thing because the book is about hope. It's about finding your path, and it highlights that for sure. So I didn't really want to write a book. I just knew that I needed to share some of the struggles. One of the traditions of the 12-step program is anonymity. And that anonymity is basically the spiritual foundation of the 12-step program. And it basically says that, you're just trying to talk to the people who are like you, but don't talk to anyone else about your problem. And for some reason in today's climate, with the amount of like opioids and addiction things that we have going on, fentanyl and all of these things, I didn't see that as useful anymore because it provided a barrier and people were unable to see the hope. Some people are unwilling to go to 12 steps to even hear that message. And so it was very interesting. Like, I broke my own anonymity so that I could showcase that, like, some people can get sober, stay sober, because I lost a lot of friends. I lost maybe 25 of my friends as a direct result of drug addiction. And, I wanted to be, I was wondering why I was still here, to be honest with you. And so I wrote the book to show some hope, to help other people. So why does Ashtanga Yoga help addicts? I think it provides like a certain level of discipline and accountability. Just like a person who is an addict needs a sponsor, like, a person in yoga needs like a yoga teacher, a tour guide. And so, one of the major points in Ashtanga Yoga is that we have really strong teachers. Not just my studio. I mean, we're basically talking about every studio. The people who teach Ashtanga Yoga are typically like very strong individuals because it's a hard practice. And that accountability, it matters, especially for someone who's struggling with addiction. And it also becomes very, it's repetitive, so we do the same thing on a daily basis. And one of the most powerful things that happened to me is I was able to see my progress. So in no other part of my life was I able to see progress except for my yoga practice when I was first getting sober. And that mattered to me. Like, I was able to bind my hands in a pose, or I was able to do a back bend, or I was able to do these things that I never thought I was going to be able to do, and it gave me hope. And not to mention that the yoga practice has been completely like reflective. It's helped me shed layers. It's helped me like get really conscious with my breath and align my body, mind, and soul, and like do away with behaviors that no longer serve me. I mean, eating better, you know, just everything. It's like sort of all encompassing. And so it provided that landscape where I was like, oh yeah, maybe I don't need to do that anymore. Maybe I need to make better decisions for myself. And it worked. I mean, today I have 13 years of sobriety.